Now we hear more from Tiffany Cherry and how she interviewed David Beckham, as well as what it was like for her becoming a mum.
You better dance, let's make a night. You won't remember, I'll be the one you won't forget.
The awards, which is the sporting version of the Academy Awards, at the same place, the Chinese Theatre in downtown LA. And I'm there with ESPN and I'm interviewing, all these famous people, which I'm like, whatever. I mean, like if I rolled them out, people would be, Shaquille O'Neal was one. I wasn't but with him, but I was still like, yeah, okay, cool. Hi, Shaquille.
Hi.
Or hi, Shaq.
How big,
and he's like,
how big
God.
is his hand?
His hand is like 5 times my hand. In fact, I had high heels on. And I'm 5'8", and I came to his shoulder with high heels on.
Yeah.
Not even his shoulder.
Probably his.
And I'm like, hi, Shaq. I'm Tiffany from Australia. He goes, hey, Tiffany, I'm Shaq. Anyway, Beckman, he was on the red carpet, and you were told by all the bookers that you weren't allowed to cancel an interview. You had to request one, and they would bring the person to you, right? So we requested. Anyway, so David Beckham only had exclusive interviews with certain people, and here's this like Adonis walking past me, and I'm thinking, stuff that. Stop canvassing. Excuse me, David. So I did what you weren't allowed to do. And he turns around and he's walking with Victoria. Anyway, I'm not kidding. Of the entire ESPY Awards, and the entire probably 2,000 people on that day, only 2 people were wearing yellow dresses. Myself and Victoria.
Oh, yeah.
She looked at me and she's like,
you would have looked
yanked his
amazing.
hand. And he's turned around, walked off, and then he's looked back at me, he's mouthed the words, I'm sorry. And I'm like, oh my God. I said to my producer, David Beckham just said he was sorry. He said, I saw it. So that was the end of that, and I thought my mum had passed. And then we're backstage, and I'm doing all these interviews, incredible athletes, coming back. Like all big names. And then one of the people came back and said, David Beckham's just won an award. He's going to do one interview, but there's 4 interviews, so you guys need to decide who. And I went, I'll do it. And they're like, oh, no, I'll do it. And I said, hang on. And so they agreed that I would do it. So I'm in this tiny little area, and honestly, it's no bigger than, by a metre by maybe 3 metres by 3 metres. There's enough room for the cameraman, and sound, and me, and the person. And I'm standing there, and I'm pacing, and the cameraman turned to me and he said, I've only known you for the day, but you've interviewed like some of the most famous people in the world, and I've never seen you nervous except for now. And I'm like, shut up, don't talk to me. And he's like, oh my God, you're nervous. So they're trying to get me. Anyway, and then as we said that, this head pokes in, pulls it, and says, hello. And it was David. And I'm like, oh my God, David, come in. Suddenly I was completely changed. Come in. I'm like, thank you so much. He's like, oh, no worries. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry. I won't do his accent. He says, I'm sorry, I didn't talk to you on the red carpet. And I went, oh,
no,
I said, don't worry, your wife has rang me a dress too. I don't think she wanted her husband talking to another girl with a yellow dress. And he goes, don't worry about that. And then he was amazing. And I said to him, can you believe you've been here for a year? I said, I'm not stalking you, but I do know it's exactly a year, because a year ago today I was trying to leave LAX and I couldn't because of the bloody traffic, and it was you arriving with your family. And he goes, oh my God, isn't it crazy? And I went, yeah. And then I said, can you believe you're in LA? And he goes, no, look at all the famous people. I'm like, yeah. And I said, so is there anyone you would like to meet? You're surrounded by famous people. He goes, there is actually. And I'm like, no way, who? And he said, there's one person. And I said, who? He goes, but I don't think he'll know who I am. And I went, I'm tipping. Like, this is the interview, right? I said, David, I'm tipping, he'll know who you are. He goes, yeah, maybe you're right. I'll go up and say hi. And I said, who are you? And he goes, Samuel L. Jackson. And I said, I bet he knows who you are. And he goes, all right, I'll go up and say hi. This is part of the interview. And
so then you went and got... And
then I was like, so, when you came to Australia, we called you golden balls. And he goes, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. And I was like, when are you coming back to Australia? And then he said, hang on a second. And he looked over at his minder. He's trying to wind us up. And he's like, it's okay. And then he said, all right, I've got something for you. I'm back. And he gave me a work one. And it's world exclusive, but an Australian exclusive, which ran in the papers, which was why you saw that. Because at the end, I said his bodyguard's trying to pull him out, and he's like, "Hang on a second." And I said to him, "Do you mind?" I had a little camera, so that was from my little camera. And I said, "Do you mind? Can I have a photo?" And he goes, "Of course." And then I had a photo at the end, and then I got the exclusive, and it made the papers around Australia.
What also made the papers was Tiffany's remarkable journey becoming a mum. Now we hear from Tiffany explain how, as she described it, she woke up one day, she was age 37, and she woke up with a fright. Somehow in the madness of her life, she said she was working her backside off to achieve her professional dream of becoming a sports broadcaster and hosting the Olympics, and she had forgotten to have a baby. So then fast forward 6 years to New Year's Eve, and she was 39 weeks pregnant. Tiffany had to go through sperm donor in order to conceive her beautiful daughter Vivian, and here's some tips from her, and we'll also share the link to read the article from the Herald Sun online.
I guess. So the last thing that we wanted to talk about was, the process of maybe having Vivian by yourself, for specifically the women who are alone and maybe considering going down that path. And maybe is there something for them, to make the process easy, or, I guess now that you've been through it, what would you sort of say to them?
Well, I would say don't ever give up. Obviously there comes a point in time, but still, like if you run out of eggs, there are donor eggs, and then, if your body can't carry the baby, there's surrogates. So even though you might, and then there's also adoption. I know I don't know the full process, but obviously it can be very difficult. But if it's not the traditional means, and hello, me having Vivian, it's not the traditional means. It may be becoming more the norm now, but I just don't box yourself and therefore limit an opportunity that could be just the most amazing gift you would ever have in your life. So I would say don't give up, and I would say look around, and there are a lot more women doing what I've done, or even same-sex couples. And that's actually how I found out about the donor clinic, the sperm donor clinic, was through a work colleague who I didn't work with full time, and then she said, "Oh, I've just had a baby," and I'm like, I was thinking, "I just saw you a couple of months ago and you didn't look pregnant to me. How?" And then she said, my partner did, and I was like, "Oh, how did you do that?" And then she told me about this clinic. So this was now nearly 7 years ago. Anyway, I then ran the clinic, and look, it took me 5 years in the end to make the decision in the end to actually get pregnant. I was very lucky, and it was really quite quick, but the emotional and mental side of it was really quite taxing. And in the middle of that, I met my ex-boyfriend, and he didn't want to have kids, and I did, and then and I didn't want to break up with him, and then we broke up and got back together, and then he said, we'll have a kid together, and then I just thought, no, this is like, he doesn't want to have one, and I don't want him to regret it, and I don't want to regret it. And so now we're like incredibly close, and in fact I would say he's part of my family, and he's Vivian's godfather, and he's besotted with her, and that's fantastic. So I think if you're true to who you are, most of the time it works out in the end. So look around, research on the internet, ask people. My stories on the internet, there are a number of stories now, people talking more about it. There's a lot more articles being written on it, but the clinic that I used is called Fertility First in Hurstville in New South Wales, in Sydney. But there's the fertility clinics in Melbourne, and Monash IVF in Melbourne. So just do some research and just ask. But what I will absolutely say is, by far, and I ended up achieving a pretty amazing goal, which was to host an Olympic Games, which very few women have ever done in this country. I achieved that. It took me 17 years to achieve it. By far, having Vivian is greater than that. And that was fantastic. That was my version of winning an Olympic gold medal. And that Vivian is just 100 times better. And puts a smile on my face every single day. And yeah, it's hard, but it's not really hard. It's amazing. Amazing.
You're a pretty amazing woman.
Tiffany is a true example that when you set a goal and you do anything to achieve it, your dreams will come true. Thank you so much, Tiffany, for sharing your story with us, and we really hope that it helps other people out there.
Thank you so much and keep in touch. Bye.
You tasted the pain of losing someone, broken chains. Don't even look back at this wasted moment's scars. If you're too